Hey, Alan.
Hi, Chris.
It's been a very, very long time, hasn't it, since we did a video?
It is.
It's been so busy, though. It's been absolutely amazingly busy. But it just stops us from doing like all the content stuff around LinkedIn and YouTube. So really happy to be back. So what's the subject for today, Alan?
It's about Copilot Exclusion. So we all know that there are some oversharing issues within some of our customers who are they are a little bit worried about who can access to what information. Can we prevent Copilot and just create some policies so Copilot shouldn't access to some specific informations? So this is our topic, and I'm sure that people will be very interested hearing some of the options.
No, I like the word exclusion because, I think when we talk about stopping or preventing Copilot's not that horrible, ugly beast that's just like, rearing around the corner. But we do still want to use it, obviously, to create and summarize, explore, all the real benefits that we're seeing. But there's just certain things that we just want to just put a little bit of a break on, when it comes to Copilot, extracting content, working with content within our organization. So it's something that we get asked quite a lot from our customers to say, look, we are wanting Copilot to help us in loads of different areas. It's just for some things around, sensitivity, secret information, anything that you're doing in your organization, there are certain controls that we can put in place that would just exclude Copilot from those interactions. But in order to do that, we need to first explain how Copilot extracts information, because there are different ways that we can use Copilot to retrieve content, process content. So let's go through that a bit more in detail.
Yes, there are some indirect use cases for Copilot. For example, when we announced Copilot, we also introduced a new technology called semantic indexing. So it's all about trying to switch back from exact keyword searching to a conceptual searching, where Copilot or the indexing can actually understand within the data, within your day-to-day languages, in your communications, collaborations, email, chat messages, and Office 365 documentation. Yeah. So you can actually just use Copilot application, which we also changed the names. Now it's again BizChat.
Yeah, but it's an interesting topic because, like, you're talking about, using a prompt to say, I want you to tell me about this subject. So you could be as broad as you want, but the idea around the indexing and obviously leaning on the graph for Copilot, looking for certain bits of information that might be relevant, whether that's around a certain person, a meeting, an email, a file, those are certain things that Copilot will go off and find stuff. And as long as I've got access to it, that's where it will surface that content up for us.
It's not defining any kind of data resource. It's just you need to tell Copilot to go and find out the latest trend index or analysis within data and AI. And it will just go and find the information, which can be broader, which shouldn't be like a very specific information. And also, what are the other ways?
Yeah, there's a couple of others. So, we spoke about indirect referencing. So not indirect referencing, but indirect access, opening up, with a very broad prompt. But there's also the ability to use like the / function where you are directing Copilot at content. So I can say, can you compare these two documents? So you do a / you find the documents, or you provide the link to the OneDrive or SharePoint location, and you're specifying to Copilot to just focus on those two bits of information. So you can do that with other references. You can reference people, meetings, emails. You can do exactly the same thing that Copilot does indirectly, but when you're directly referencing content. So it's all to do around pointing Copilot at those sources of information. So what we call that direct referencing. And then the other bit that tends to slip off a little bit in conversation, but actually, when we look at the actual purpose of Copilot inside our applications, where we've got Copilot for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, what we call that is, I call it in-app usage, but the correct term is content in use. So what we mean by content in use is you've got a Word document, you open it in Word, that content is now in use within the application itself. And that's, of course, where we can also use Copilot as well to summarize content, create something from scratch. We can reference other documents as well. We can do loads of things within the applications as well, but also outside, using things like business chat, for example. So those are the three key areas. And it's really interesting to note, depending on what you're most concerned about, if you're concerned about Copilot surfacing information, then you can look for things to control the direct and indirect referencing. But also, if you just want to put breaks full stop on certain documents, then you need to look at the content in use as well. So there are some options for our customers to look at, quite a few actually. So let's dive into that a little bit more, shall we?
So what we introduced recently, and now I think it's generally available, and some of the features are still in public preview or private preview, specific to SharePoint sites. So you can actually use restricted SharePoint search and also restricted content discovery, enable to limit the access of the SharePoint sites or data. So basically what restricted SharePoint search is, you can actually just allow Copilot to access to the first 100 very well-used site. And restricted SharePoint search, that setting will help the SharePoint administrator or above administrator with the Microsoft 365 to maintain a specific list of SharePoint sites. And if you have access to it, you'll be having access to it. But if you don't have access to it, both Copilot and non-Copilot users will be affected. And when you use Copilot, you will be restricted within that 100 sites, and it's still the limitations. This means that you won't be able to go and do broader organizational search. So this might affect the search results and the usage experience within Copilot experience. But why we are doing this? So restricted SharePoint search will address the oversharing concerns, allowing organizations to prevent sites from showing up in the Copilot result. And also it will honor all the existing site permission and let site owners to manage individual site permission. So we usually recommend this solution as a short-term solution, enable to give administrators to sort out all the site security and compliance, secure everything, and then you should be able to enable the whole organizational search. Yeah. But also, like I said, it will actually give some limitations to the user experience by they will only search from that site. So Copilot has less information available as reference and will impact the ability to have like a broader experience. The other thing is, so this is basically you have up to 100 allowed sites.
So it's like a whitelist. So like a whitelist, right. Yeah, exactly.
What about the deny list? So this will be another approach, which is called restricted content discovery. So you'll able to just restrict access or block access to some of the SharePoint sites. And that's in our roadmap.
Yeah, no, that's great. But I think in terms of some of the considerations around that, it will impact the search experience. But however, if users can still get access through, previous historical purposes, or if they manage to open up the files within those restricted sites, then they can still effectively use Copilot. What we're doing effectively is we're restricting the search capability. So indirect or directly referencing, Copilot will respect that. But if you're looking at content in use, then Copilot would probably still work in that scenario.
That's correct. And what are the other options?
I think the other one was there's a new Purview label feature that's coming out. I've been told it was supposed to be Q4 this year, but I think it's going to be pushed back to about next quarter for next year. So that was to do around AI Hub, I believe.
Yeah, policies.
Yes.
So you'll be able to use information labels with Microsoft Purview enabled to prevent Copilot access to that information.
Yes, so it's another form of
And
exclusion. Yeah.
that's correct. So yes, restricted SharePoint search, we are recommending that as a short-term solution because we don't want Copilots enabled users because it's not a cheap product, let's say. We want them to have the best experience as much as they can. So information labeling with Microsoft Purview will be the long-term solution.
Yeah, definitely around the labels. Yeah, fully agree with that. So this new exclusion feature, the other thing to mention as well is that this will be an advanced DLP policy to be configured in the Purview AI Hub, which is still in preview. However, there are certain experiences that this will solve where Copilot won't be able to retrieve content if you indirectly or directly reference content. But what we have seen is that this new label won't apply if you were to open up those applications. So if you were in Word and you open up this labeled document, then Copilot will still work. So there may be a few concerns around that. It's still a great feature because there's no, from what it looks like, there's no additional licensing involved. This is an AI hub, which will be part of Purview. So there's nothing additional. It's just a configuration, but definitely a consideration. So the other option that we've got as well, which was one of my most favorite ones as of recently, was around the extract rights. And this is something that I've tested quite a lot within Purview. And there are some really good benefits to this. However, there is a gotcha with this as well, which I'll try to explain. Okay. So when you remove the extract permissions, you're effectively removing the ability for anyone to cut and copy from a document. So that's pretty much it. But Copilot also uses that same permission to extract information from documents. So the downside is that if you open up a labeled document with the extract rights removed, if you right click, you won't be able to see cut and copy. But also as well, you'll notice that the Copilot button has completely disappeared as well. So this works this will also work outside the document. So if I was to reference the file directly or indirectly through the indexing, Copilot won't be able to retrieve that information. When you're in the body of the application, though, there is a bit of a gotcha in that if you are the document owner, then that extract permission removal doesn't apply to you because you are the document and label owner. So therefore, when you open up that document, you've got the full-blown permissions, you'll still see the Copilot button. So it works if you are in an environment where you send off a load of labeled documents and you've got loads of recipients, because that's obviously where Copilot won't work. But if you are the owner, if you're making all these labeled documents, then Copilot will still work in that context. So it's a little bit of a downside, it's a drawback, but it's not too bad. It just really depends on on the environment and how you're making these sensitive documents, especially with the labels. There's also the ability to use something called double key encryption. So that is a very interesting way of providing encryption keys to your documents. And in a nutshell, Copilot doesn't hold any of your encryption keys. It doesn't know about that. So therefore, when it tries to access the document, it won't be able to because double key encryption is enforced. That applies to everything. That applies to indirect access, direct referencing, and also within the body of the application as well. So double key encryption also removes what we call connected experiences within the application. So therefore, if DKE is on, then Copilot button will be grayed out. The only drawback, though, is that you have to host different keys in different locations. You've got to make sure users have got access to those keys. There's a bit of an additional cost to that as well. So I generally would say if you've got a real high level, real sensitive, official, secret information, then I would probably say double key encryption is probably at the more extreme side of protecting content, but still it is available. But if it is, then Copilot also respects that as well.
And I think we recently made some changes within the settings and options with connected experience with Copilot usage.
Yeah, we have. So this is probably one of my more favorite ones, and the reason why is because it doesn't require any access control with labels. It doesn't need any extract permissions removed. What it is when you apply a label, you can configure the settings to turn off the connected experiences. Not all connected experiences, just the connected experiences that analyzes content. And this is the connected experiences where Microsoft 365 also will analyze your content within your documents and send things off to the LLM if you allow it to. So the idea around this is that you apply the setting, and outside the document works really well. I can say, can you summarize this document? It won't work. And then when you go into the actual document itself, you'll notice that the Copilot button has been grayed out, even if I'm the document owner. So that's great. That ticks all the boxes. So regardless, doesn't matter about the user permissions. I've got full editing rights. I can cut, copy, do whatever I want. However, the connected experiences that sends things off to Copilot will effectively be disabled. So works really well. And also, it doesn't matter, it works if you have manual labeling, if you have automatic labeling. As soon as that label gets applied, that's where the settings are in force. So it doesn't matter if you're an E3 customer or an E5 customer, it works extremely well.
Great. I think this was a great informative session or episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, if you're a customer watching and you have concerns about, different things, it's not a one size fits all. Customers have got many different, objections or challenges around, maybe you don't want Copilot surfacing information internally. This works really well. If you don't want Copilot processing information, because you may have certain policies to say we need to keep all of our data in the UK, for example, this works really well. We don't want Copilot to process certain sensitive information. This also works extremely well. So it may be that you don't want Copilot to process PII or anything labeled under a certain setting. Then, these are some of the things where we can exclude Copilot from that processing. So you can adhere to your own policies. You can adhere to regulations or legislation. So, it works really well. We're not trying to block everything, but only the things that really are of a sensitive nature, of a critical nature for our customers. So, it's a really great topic. I really enjoy talking about this.
Me too. And some of these feature sets, they will be available through SharePoint Advanced Management licensing. Yes. And also, so if you would like to go very granular level, you'll have the opportunity to restrict SharePoint site access, also restrict OneDrive or SharePoint content access. So you can actually go into very granular level if you are worried about oversharing.
That's the restricted content discovery that needs that SharePoint Advanced Management. So with that's the bit around blacklisting. So you can block Copilot from those sites at site level. But I much prefer looking at files in general, because deep into the underlying source of information, regardless of where it sits, if it's in OneDrive or SharePoint, look at the files, apply the settings, and therefore Copilot will just respect that on the file level.
That's correct.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, once again, thank you, Aliv. We need to do more of these. I've dropped the ball slightly, so we'll do more, I'm sure.
Cool. And if you have any other topics that you would like us to talk about or give more information, please let them put in the comments.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you, Aliv. Take care.
Bye.